Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 23 of What If Naruto was the direct descendant of the sage. Remember to get this one to 100 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends in your social media platform. And stay in tune for a brand new episode of What If Naruto Awakened, the Yellow Renegon over on Anime King 3 guys. Which I do hope that you guys enjoy. And remember to stay in tune for a new episode over on Anime King 2 as well. All links will be down in the description for you guys to enjoy. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King 2, and Anime King 3, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all for helping your support. And yeah, without further ado, what is to begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last spot we left off, Naruto said goodbye to Sora, as he was leaving once again, as he had asked Sora to come with him, but Sora wanted to do the same thing, as he wanted to find his own path. So the both of them will be leaving the gate tomorrow, but they will be going different paths, and that is exactly what happened. So with that, Naruto was trying to find out about nature in Jinao, as he made his way, when something happened. The group went to investigate as they heard the explosion. They arrived to find a girl stuck under a tree, the way her leg was bent. It was obvious that they were severely broken. Hearing that Konoha ninjas were coming, they decided to flee with her. Tell you why was that girl as she woke up? She was confused where she was as she felt her legs in pain and agony as she saw him. As Naruto ended up removing the curse mark, as the both of them talked, she had a rather foul mouth. He told her that she could leave anytime. She took that opportunity to run away, even though she was rather slow given that her legs were still injured. But she realized if Orochimaru found her now, she was good as dead, as he did not leave loose end open. And that Naruto guy was pretty strong. After all, he had made Orochimaru fled. So she made up her mind. 2 weeks passed as Teiwaya had been traveling with the group. Surprisingly, Haku and Fu hated her, given that they were the most reserved of the group, as they didn't like the girl at all. She was always getting under their skin. As they kept on traveling, everyone could tell that they really disliked the girl, but she just kept on traveling with them, as they knew why, as Fu knew exactly why. It was because she was scared. She was nothing but a coward. As Fu finally got some time to herself, as she felt it, as she made her way to investigate, as she saw Naruto training. Teiwaya was there as well, and as much as she didn't like the girl, she stayed, as she watched. They quickly got into an argument, as Teiwaya pissed Fu off to the point where Fu started to draw upon the demonic chakra. As she was about to punch her, she slammed her into a tree, ready to bring her fist right down on her, but she was stopped by Naruto, who gave the both of them a disappointed look. Fu apologized and told him that it wouldn't happen again, and he told her alright, as Teiwaya was pissed, as he let her off so easy. As Naruto turned towards her with a glare, he trusts Fu more than anything, and if she keep on acting this way, he had no problem with just leaving her behind. Teiwaya became silent at that. Time passed as they have been traveling once again, as she's been rather silent lately, as she seemed just withdrawing on herself. As they made their way, they were talking about the first Hokage and how the man was able to achieve Sage Mode. When Naruto remembered something as he unsealed a pot, releasing the two of them, it was then that they stood there, the first and second Hokage, but they weren't doing anything. As Naruto remembered, Orochimaru put a talisman in their head. He removed it, as their face became cracked and old. But they woke up, as they were aware of their surroundings. Tobirama looked towards Naruto, as Naruto understood why this man was a Hokage. The man analyzed Naruto down to the fine point and said everything, as Naruto was shocked that the man quickly figured out so much from just seeing him once, as he just took over his appearance. He then asked Naruto to open his eyes, which he did, as the two Hokages were intrigued. So yeah guys, so basically last point left off, you guys can switch across to the place and check it out for yourself. So this to begin this new episode. Interesting. That was all Tobirama said about Naruto's eyes. As Naruto was under no illusion that the man did not know they were the Rinnegan. Oh, do me next. As Teiwaya looked towards Tobirama, he turned towards her. Too easy. As he dismissed her with a simple flick of his wrist. She looked down in shocked silence. She was just asking to analyze her like we analyzed Naruto. What dojutsu is that? Naruto turned. As the first Hokage was really close to him, peering into his eyes. He backed off as the Hokage pouted, once again showing this strange attitude. As it seems like he was more jovial than most thought. You fool, that is a Rinnegan. If you had actually read any of those books that father gave you, you'd have known that, instead of running off playing your Uchiha friend. As Hoshirama faked a shocked expression with a hand over his heart. You wound me, brother. You wound me very bad with your cold words. Tobirama grunted something under his breath. As Hoshirama then turned back Naruto, with a smile on his face. You really have the Rinnegan, that's so cool. Naruto was speechless. Honestly, completely speechless. So what's your name? I always hoped that Senjo and Uchiha would get together to have a kid, just to see if they would awaken the Rinnegan. He stood back a bit, a rather thoughtful look on his face. As he remembered a fond memory. Those Uchiha thought they were also better with their secret tablet. Like, the Senjus didn't have their ways of remembering their ancestors. He then turned back to Naruto. Well, Naruto Uzumaki, Shodi-sama. Please, don't bother with the honorifics. I always disliked that dry, political stuff. Tobirama sighed to himself as he shook his head. And yet you managed to form an alliance between two arguing powerful shinobi clans and create their first hidden village. Tobirama looked towards his brother with a smile. I'm just that good, he said. As Tobirama's sweat dropped, once again he sighed. He thought he had seen the last of this attitude when his brother died. So, Naruto-kun, you have the Rinnegan. Yeah, said Naruto, as he was just looking at him. All of his previous memories and thoughts of the first was torn apart. At least the second seemed the same. Well, from his face carving that mountain. That's so cool! As Naruto nodded, as awkward silence once again fell, until Tobirama broke it. Well, as enlightening as that was, my brother and I should be leaving. Our spirits should not be here. As he was going through Hansan, Naruto stopped him. As he was just about to deactivate the Edo Tensei. It would make sense that the Jutsu creator would know how to cancel the effect. Especially with someone of his foresight, as Naruto could tell that the man was incredibly smart, as he was able to analyze him just by a few things, and find out quite a lot. Wait, Hokage-sama, I wanted to ask you something. He paused as he lowered his hands. Very well speak, after all. What is good wisdom if it cannot be passed down to the next generation? Naruto smiled at that. It sounded like something Shikaku, or even the third Hokage would say. Well, this man was the third Hokage's teacher. Actually, I wanted to ask your brother something. As Tobirama turned towards his brother, he simply corrected the eyebrow. As Hoshirama nodded, as he looked rather amused for some reason. Is it true that you master nature chakra? The question seemed to catch both of them off guard, as he looked at Naruto questioningly. Wow, that's not something I thought would enter the history books. I thought for sure that only my clan and my wife knew about it. It was supposed to be a secret after all. As he looked at the second Hokage, as the man had that glint in his eye, once again confirming that this was a serious second Hokage. You said that your name was Uzumaki, correct? Perhaps you're related to Mito in some way, said Hoshirama, as Tobirama took interest in that. After all, despite his cold exterior, family mean everything to him, just like his brother. I'm sorry, but I never knew my parents. A hint of sadness came into the man's eyes. Naruto was confused. The man barely knew him, and yet it seemed genuine and real. How could he care for someone he just barely met? I apologize then. Me and my brother know the pain of not knowing our mother. However, the Uzumakis always treasure family to the most. I suppose you had the support of your clan though. Even if the relationship between Mito is not direct, there are still ties. And we Senju always remember our allies. As Naruto knew that after all the Uzumaki spirals on ever, Shinobi Flap Jacket in Konoha. No, the Uzumaki clan was wiped out. Uzu was destroyed in the Second Great Shinobi War. Hoshirama's face lowered as he mourned the passing of their greatest allies and friends. As a mournful look came over Tobirama's face as well, but it passed and he looked up once again. Second Shinobi Ward, you see. I had hoped that the elemental nations would see the problem of such a large-scale war after the first war ended, said Tobirama. Hoshirama on the other hand seemed completely confused. He had passed away before the first war even broke out after all. There was war? I had hoped the Bijus acting as a deterrent would prevent such a thing. As Naruto never get a chance to speak, as Tobirama turned to his brother, not just war, a conflict between ever great nation, worse than a clan war period. Hoshirama seemed very disturbed by that his whole life. He has spent it working towards peace, and to find out that everything had been broken apart after his death was just saddening. This was the fault of your foolishness, brother. Instead of a deterrent, you simply gave the other nations a weapon to use against us. Instead of handing out such power, you should have held it. You should have used it to purify the land. That would have seen peace. Apparently, Hoshirama didn't have a counter for that as he looked at the ground for a moment before looking back at Naruto. You said that there was 2 wars after my passing. As Naruto shook his head, unsure. As, despite just knowing the man as well, he had just something about him that made people feel happy around him. And telling him about the 3rd war, it would just... But Fu decided to help Naruto out, after all. She was not staggering to say things. 3. There were 3 wars, each worse than the last, as the nations fought over trivial things, monies and land, tearing apart the smaller nations as they became battleground. Hoshirama sighed at that. That was exactly what he was trying to avoid when he handed out the Biju to the other Kages. However, the second Kage took an interest in Fu, as he found a kindred spirit in her calm, collected gaze. You're from Taki, correct? If Fu was surprised that he figured out that so quickly, she did not show it. After all, Naruto had told her that Kakashi was able to find out just as much from her fighting style and her appearance. So, she simply nodded. Why are you traveling with a Konoha defect? Ayuki, who is long away from home. A Saki no Kuni native, who you clearly hold ill will towards. As Fu didn't look shocked, but on the inside she was surprised. As Haku and Tegoai gasped a bit. As Naruto frowned a bit, he was the Konoha defect. Because they're my friends, she said. As Tobirama smiled at that, satisfied with the answer. Then it is good to see that the will of fire burned so far from the tree itself. He then turned towards Naruto, as his brother was still going under the revelation of what he just heard. You said you want to know about my brother, abilities, with nature chakra, the art of senjutsu, correct? Naruto nodded. They have really straight off topic. What exactly do you wish to know? It felt strange talking about the man when he was right there, but it seems like Tobirama was the one that was more wise when it comes to certain things. Where did he harness nature chakra? Without a summoning contract, I am unable to ask any of summoning animals. That is the reason why I'm currently looking for Tsunade Fasanin, because she holds the slug contract. At the mention of that name, Hoshirama broke from his stupor as he looked up, with a sparkle in his eye. Little Tsunade-chan, he said. As Naruto blinked, oh yeah, this was Tsunade's great-grandfather and her grand-uncle. As he had to suppress a smirk, he knew that Tsunade wouldn't appreciate being called like that. Yes, although she's not so little anymore. Hoshirama simply smiled, as good memories start to replace the depressing thoughts. I always wonder how she turned out. I spoiled her a lot though. I even taught her how to gamble myself, he said. He seemed really proud of that, as Naruto and full sweat dropped. I bet she inherited my legendary good luck. It always ran in our family after all. It seems that the Senju luck ran out before it went to Tsunade, but he wouldn't mention that. As Tobirama coughed in his hand, getting back to topic. Oh yeah, you want to know where I mastered Senjutsu, right? As Naruto nodded. It was a small glaive, deep, in the forest of Haiminakune. It had been sacred and special to the Senju clan, hundreds of years, even before my time. The place was practically saturated with nature chakra. It was perfect for Senjutsu training. As somewhere like that would be perfect. Wait, did you say was? Naruto asked. Hoshirama nodded, as Tobirama frowned. The glade no longer exists, it was burned down during a raid by a nearby Senju hideout, Tobirama said, his skull deepening. A raid from the Uchiha clan. Hoshirama turned towards his brother. We don't have time for your dislike of them. We forgave them when Konoha was found. Why could you not leave it in the past and move on, like I could? Tobirama crossed his arms over his chest as he said nothing, as Hoshirama turned back towards Naruto. Like I said, young one, the place I train no longer exists. I am afraid the forest around Hainakuni is too saturated in my own Mokitan chakra that it would be no use. But I can offer you some advice. Naruto nodded. It wasn't often you receive advice from a Kage. To master Senjutsu, you must have both large chakra reserves to properly balance nature chakra. At that, Tobirama kneeled down as he touched the ground. Before looking back up, that should be no trouble. Two of you are Jinjukis after all. As Fu saw that the histories were right. Tobirama was a great sensor after all. In any case, you must be perfectly still when you allow nature chakra to enter your body. I did this in a cave in the grove that I trained in. There were some stalagmites, which I used a stone to balance on. Tobirama smiled at that as remember his brother fallen off of them at first. But then he noticed his body started turning ashen grey, like paper being torn away from a sheet. It seems that the chakra sustaining these bodies is finally running out. Hoshirama loaded onto his arm as he started to flake away as well. That is fine. I see that the will of fire runs strongly in these children. And strongly in your successor as well. Konoha will survive. And the world will find peace. Naruto was surprised at the thought of what to do with the two Kages. After once he got information never crossed his mind. I thought the Tensei provide you with unlimited chakra. That was what Orochimaru said. As Tobirama simply smirked as his body started to break away. The connection with the summoner was cut the moment you removed the seals, and the supply had stopped. As Tobirama's arm fell off and just broke away, he then turned, "You, Taki girl," he said. "I feel that you will grow strong in the future. Continue to grow strong for the right reasons and carry on my will." As Fu was surprised, but the moment she nodded, his body broke away. Hoshirama gave him a warm smile as he started to break away completely. "Tell Tsunade-chan that I love her," he said. And with that, their souls were gone as they returned back to the pure world. Well, shit. Sete where? Well, that basically summed up everything nicely. Time skip. As Naruto walked inside his mindscape, with Fu's help after the Gobi was sealed, the place had returned back to normal. In the past few weeks of traveling, he had visited his tenants a lot, something Shikaku was happy for. But today he came across a door. He had discovered that he could talk to each of them separately, if he wished to do so. He supposed it would be nice to talk to Mantabe, without the Kyuubi glaring at her from the corner of the room, as he was always a threat that made them quiet and didn't want to give out most information. But that would just break away his relationship with the fox. Well, if you could even call it that. He's trying to build it up for the longest time now. I suppose I should be honored, great sage, for I to be singled out by you. Despite of not being angry, the fox has been rather sarcastic and always saying things just to take Naruto off. I simply wanted to talk to you, the Kyuubi. Show no form like he noticed Naruto talking. At least he was happy not to hear his siblings mumbling on. Then talk, human, and be gone. At least he was tolerating him a year ago. He would not do that. I want to know about the sage, Naruto said. The fox ears twitch a bit. Have we not had this conversation before, human? I have told you about the sage before. Now be gone and take your pointless questions with you. The Kyuubi had told Naruto about the sage, life in passing, but that wasn't what Naruto wanted, as he shook his head. No, I want to know about the sage himself. What was he like? Who he really was? The Kyuubi turned his head as he looked towards Naruto, his eyes reminding him so much of the old man. What brought this on, human? Do you wish to make more comparison between yourself and him to flay your idiotic ego? Naruto shook his head in a soft smile. It always irritated the fox how easy Naruto could simply ignore his insult and just go along like he said nothing. No, meeting with the first and second Hokage. Show me that time and legends, twists, figures. If the stories about the personality of the first changed so much, then I can only imagine, with so much millennia, how the story of the sage had changed as well. As Hoshirama had made it clear, despite being so powerful, known as a legend, he was still a human, someone with their quirks and problems, someone who was calm then, serious at certain moments, but relaxed at most. The sage was strong. As Naruto looked at the Kyuubi, as the Kyuubi looked back at him, the Kyuubi huffed. I do not understand your question. The sage was the sage. He was who he was. Naruto raised an eyebrow and he couldn't tell if the Kyuubi was avoiding the question or he didn't comprehend it. What was his name? The Kyuubi snorted, a rush of air washing over Naruto. If I won't tell you my own, why would I tell you his? Then simple, why not tell me your name? The Kyuubi eyes narrowed. Your attempts of humor are pointless. Now tell me, what is your real purpose in coming here, human? It's like I said, I want to know about the sage. I should understand the man whose eyes I possess, should I not? He had a family. That meant he had a wife, sons. As Naruto remembers something from those times. Wives, he said. The Kyuubi snorted in amusement. The sage was far too humble to have more than one wife. That woman he was with was far too fearsome to allow anyone else. The fox quickly shut his mouth. That slipped out. Was that so hard? Said Naruto. The fox released a low growl. What will it take for you to leave me in peace, human? Just the name. That's all, said Naruto. The fox's eyes narrowed for a moment, as he lowered his head back down to his palm. Hagoromo Susuke, he said. That was the name of the sage. That was the name of my father and one human I could respect. Now, leave. As Naruto decided not to press his luck, as he nodded as he slowly faded away, as he returned back to consciousness. The fox then walked back into the darkness as he wondered what questions Naruto would bring with him next time. Time skip. Are you sure about this? Well, not really. As the 4 teens were around a campfire. But it's either this or going around in Sakinokuni. That wouldn't be wise, Fu said. As Naruto nodded. Why? What's the deal in Sakinokuni? Asked Teiwaya. As she was from that nation herself. After all, the two haven't been traveling with Naruto and Fu that long. Haku being longer than Teiwaya, but he was still unaware of everything he went through. Let's just say that the Hidden Stone holds a bit of a grudge against the 4th Hokage, and that includes everyone with blonde hair, said Naruto as he pointed towards his hair. Teiwaya understood because when she was younger, the 4th Hokage name was said in hush, hateful whispers. Actually, you do look a bit like him. A haircut, and some contacts, and you would look at a spitting image of him. So I've been told, said Naruto. So, Mount Miyaboku then. You think it's in Kaminari-kune, said Haku. I don't know, said Naruto. But it's one of the few places with high mountains. As many people did not know what was behind those valleys, because it went on for a long while. Nations did not build any more resources over there. People went to explore, but they never came back. I don't think that the summoning realms are even in this plane. Even if they are, they will be very well hidden, said Fu. But if that is the case, she said, why not ask one of your summons, such as that young salamander that you once summoned? I did. But they told me without having a contract, they cannot tell me where the realm is, or if it is even reachable to humans. Teiwaya snorted a bit. Then why not make a summoning contract with them? That would solve your problem, right? Said Teiwaya. It turns out I can't, he said. The same thought had came to him, so he summoned the boss of salamanders. His name was Kogemara. Because I have the ability to summon any creature without even a contract, there's a possibility of me being unfaithful in my summoning. Like a ninja trying to obey more than one Kage. As soon as the bosses saw my eyes, they refused to allow me to sign the contract. It was a shame that Tsunade Sensei couldn't help, said Fu as Naruto nodded. After their talk with the first and second, they managed to find Tsunade and they asked her, but even with her voting for them, and while Katsuya was rather peaceful, without a contract, she could not reveal the location of the forest to them. The obvious thing was for one of them to just sign the contract, but this time it was Tsunade that stood in their way. She was adamant that the one that she would allow to sign her contract would be her one true apprentice. And while skilled, Shizune wasn't at nearly the caliber that Tsunade was. Fu was eligible. And not to mention, even Lieutenant, she was able to perform medical ninjutsu rather well. But being Tsunade apprentice would tear her away from Naruto. After all, it would be a full-time thing. So once again they were stuck, and also if one of them signed the contract, only they would be allowed to go inside the forest. As Naruto saw, once again they were in a deadlock, they were stuck. Not to mention, if they did find the summoning homes, how would the summons react to them? But he guess he will have to cross that bridge when it comes to it. In that case, said Naruto as he got up, the fire, showing off his features. We'll move on to the next one. You know, in this situation a year ago, I would probably quote my master, saying that life is a journey, to be taken at a slow, steady pace. Or something like that, but it may take even a lifetime to reach my goal. He looked at each and every one of them. It may even take a lifetime to reach my goal. For all I know, I might fail, and I might have to leave it to someone else to follow my footsteps. But I'm thankful to have you guys coming along with me, he said. You make the lonely and long path I walk worth traveling. So thank you all, he said. As there was a moment of silence. But Teiwaya broke it. Stop getting all mushy, shithead, she said. It doesn't really suit you that much. But she had to turn away, hiding the red on her cheeks. As Naruto chuckled quietly to himself, as a calm breeze washed over the place, he really meant his words. But the last lead that they had ended in a rather disturbing manner. Flashback. As Naruto was shocked, he was in the village of Hashigakure. As he was walking, nothing but devastation and pure destruction. Bodies lay broken. They weren't stabbed. They weren't torn apart. They were just broken on the ground, like someone had crushed them with force. As Naruto wondered, who would do this? Who could do this? And the weird thing about it was, there was no sign of the enemy. All of these ninjas that lie here was Hashigakure ninjas. As he reached on and picked up a headband with a star, as there was a bit of blood on it. As he held on to it, a frightening thought came to his mind. After all, he had the power to do something like this. There was someone else out there like him. A small group, or probably even one person as well. As he looked around, no enemies. He then sensed it as he rushed down. There was a crater there. A crater that seemed to be there before the village was even founded. As he tossed a large piece of beam off of a young girl who was trapped underneath it. As she had brown hair that was messed up, tears streaming down her cheeks, her face in constant pain. He then noticed her side. A large piece of wood had pierced right through it. She was going to die. The only reason why she hadn't bled out yet was because the beam had been placed on top of her. Not even Tsunade can do anything to ease her pain at the moment. Misu, Aura, as the girl coughed, blood coming from her mouth. Shh, said Naruto, as he started trying to relieve much of the pain as possible, his glowing green hands going over her side. After warn, red clouds, black cloak, orange as Naruto's hand stopped glowing, as her light was gone. Naruto, as a hand placed on his shoulder, it was full. She then held on to his arm. Don't. What? How could you say that? I could still save her. I can save her, he said. Let her rest with her village. There is nothing left for her in this world anymore. As Naruto remembered Shizuku's words back at Konoha, I don't belong here anymore. My time has passed. As he gently removed his hand and stood back up. Another person that he could not save. As he looked on the poor girl, her body now unmoving. We should at least bury their bodies. They deserve that much. As Fu nodded, it will be a long day and a long night. But they could give these people some proper respect. In the flashback, at the moment the group was traveling in Tominori no Kuni. As Naruto was at the front, the place was hot, and he had been in High no Kuni for a long while, and even in the sand. As he was walking at the front, he shouldn't be so well open because, seeing that last time he left Kumo, he wasn't on really good terms with them. But his hair had grown out, his whisker marks were gone, and not to mention, he sealed away Shakejo, as he was currently on his waist along with the pot. Are we there yet? Said Teiwaya. Considering we don't know where there is, I'm gonna say no, said Naruto. As Naruto paused after a few minutes, he felt something a minute ago, but it was gone. He started to walk once again, and he then paused once again. He just felt it again. As the group started to walk once again, it only took 10 seconds as Naruto unsealed his Shakijo and blocked a sword. It was covered with lightning chakra. He pushed up using the enhanced strength that he learned from Tsunade to push back his much larger opponent. As the man jumped back, as Naruto blinked in surprise. Killer Bee? Sure enough stood the ATL Jinchuriki, Killer Bee, as he had one of his swords in his hand and a smirk on his face. Well, what I must say, Naino, that was mighty impressive when you blocked my flow, you fool. Despite the friendly face, Naruto did not drop his guard. As he placed away his sword on his sheath on his back. The moment his sword clicked in the sheath, he had to grab Fu's leg that came towards his face as he tossed her away. As she landed perfectly. Oh man, if it ain't Miss Little 7, I bet it'd not be. You really know to flip, you fool. As the man was dancing as he talked, as he was just flailing his arms around, as Fu looked at him with a quirk eyebrow. Seeing how he easily stopped Fu, Teiwai and Haku did not engage. So you were the one I kept noticing. How did you get by my sensory ability? Never underestimate the one and only mighty Killer Bee. I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee because I'm the mightiest of the Jinchurikis. You know that, you fool. As he was bobbing his head on with some invisible beat, as all of them looked at him. What's up with this guy? Did he got drop on his head or something? Asked Teiwai. Yo, don't diss what you don't know. You starting to sound like my big bro. You fool. As Teiwai eyebrows started to twitch. Who the hell you calling a fool, you damn shithead? Killer Bee turned his head ignoring her as he turned towards Naruto, as that pissed her off even more. Man, Naino, where did you pick up this firecracker? Since you've been gone. You've certainly ain't been slacking, you fool. As Killer Bee crossed his arms. Naruto knew if he wanted to attack, he would have done so already. It's good to see you again, Killer Bee. Yo, that's Killer Bee's Salmon to you and you should know it. Because when the Haxabees start, he just don't blow shit up, you fool. As Naruto waved him off, they had been through this already the last time he was in Kumo. As Killer Bee ignored the disrespect. You know, Mr. 9, you really upset Miss Yujito. She's been bubbling and raging, and she just won't quit. So much so, I had to leave. As much as Naruto finding his droppings odd, he couldn't understand how he came up with them on the fly like that. I would apologize, but I don't think that she would take it well, honestly. Killer Bee pulled out a notebook as he started to write down something. Honestly, honest. Dismiss, nah. The list, nah. As he started to mumble something to himself. As he pocketed back his notebook. This Jinchuriki has to keep his rap tight. Otherwise, they will lose your bites, you know, you fools. So you're not here because of Yujito? Nah, man. That ain't my plan. Lately, my rhymes have been lacking. So I think I'll take a sabbatical. And I think I'll learn from the best, Mr. Sabu. So you aren't here because of me taking a nibby? Killer Bee shook his head as he patted the seal on his shoulder. No, man. Haxabe-sama already spoke with the fiery cat, and she said that her new Jinchuriki is all that. So you and me, no fool. We're cool, you fool. As Naruto was quite relieved, despite not acting it most of the time, Killer Bee was quite powerful. Not to mention he had full control with his Biju. And it wouldn't be the first time that Naruto faced off against a transformed Biju, but 3 versus 8. That was a lot of difference. 5 tail worth of difference. Well, in that case, it's good to see you, Killer Bee. How have you been? Killer Bee held his hand out for Naruto to give him a fist bump. I've been real good, Mr. 9. Things in Kumo have been real fine. As Naruto bumped fists to the man, he then turned towards Fu and raised his fist. But she just looked at his hand, unmoving. He lowered his hand after a while, with a sweat drop coming down his face. Man, that's really cool, Miss 7. Why do you have to take away this Jinchuriki? Slice of heaven, you fool. As she just kept on staring at him as he looked away. He could still feel her eyes boring into the side of his skull though. She was still staring. But Mr. 9, you should believe my bro was mad. The time that I was out of the village that time, I was so glad. As B shut her a bit, remembering that iron claw grip. As he then seemed like he was talking to someone in his mind. Before he nodded. Then this is more tight. There is no sign. Haxabe-sama saying that you're looking for the home of the toads. In that case, you have to walk a whole lot of roads. Wait, you're saying it's not in Kamen Nakuni? Naruto asks. Didn't I say that? Don't be a brat, yeah, you fool? Well, at least that saved them from wasting time here. If anyone would know if there was a summoning route in their country, it would be Kumo. Hey man, don't be so down. It ain't right to frown. If the chakra of nature is what you're seeking, maybe this isn't the right direction you should be peeping. As Naruto went through the rhyme that Killer Bee said. Wait, do you mean you know a place that we can train in Senjutsu? As Killer Bee was bobbing his head the entire time. As Haku looked at him, Haku wondered if he had an imaginary crowd in his head that was cheering him on as he spoke. Of course I know, you fool. Ain't nobody the Killer Bee can't school. About the island shore off our very own Kumo, you fool. Ain't no place closer to nature than that, just like how these rhymes ain't flat. As he raised his arm up in the air like two horns. Time skip a few minutes later as B was pointing out the island on the map. As Fu had been carrying on a map. It took them a few minutes because he kept on rapping, and sometimes it was hard to know what he was saying. And there you go, you fools. Make sure you don't be any tools. I gotta go. Make sure you come and visit me sometime, Mr. Nine. So I gotta find someone now who appreciate my rhyme. Sure, anytime, said Naruto. I hope you enjoy your time with your instructor. It was good seeing you again, said Naruto. As B raised his arm, as Naruto gave him another fist bump. Now, as a B is gone to that sight, he said, as he gave them a peace sign before heading off down the road. As Naruto turned his head, what's up, you fools, said Naruto. As the group blinked at him. Shithead, if you ever start speaking like that, I don't care how powerful you are, I will put you under a genjutsu. As Haku nodded, one of the few times when he agreed with Teiwaya, as Naruto rubbed back of his head and smiled a bit. So with that, the group headed off once again, making their way. Time skip. The heat was beyond anything, to the point where Naruto had to roll up his sleeve and open his robes, as he felt like he was being dragged down. He felt like he was getting exhausted by just the heat alone. Teiwaya was so burned out that she didn't even have the energy to talk. Fu was in the same situation, but she had pride and she would never actually say that out loud. But you could see the sweat marks on her clothing and her forehead. Haku was having it worse. The young ice user was boiling alive. As the group was making their way, the heat was just beyond intense. B never mentioned about this forest being this hot. The climate. Naruto has never experienced something like this before. But still, with the running gun, he could see it. As he could even feel it, the place was surrounded with exotic wild animals. Peaceful, everything was calm. Birds were chirping, animals were leaping from branch to branch. As the place felt like nature itself. Well, this seemed like the goodest place, said Naruto. There wasn't any soft tone in his voice, or him smiling. He just looked irritated for once, as the heat was really getting to him the same way. There was a small stream over there. This was the best place to stop. Finally, said Teiwaya, as she plopped down. As Naruto raised his hand as sand came out from the earth, as a house was created for them. As the sand then turned into a thick, dense material, it was the same thing that he did for Shizuku. But he had more control now, so he could do it on a larger scale, like this house for example. It took them a while to get settled, while Teiwaya searched the entire place for the coldest place in the house, as she called dibs. As Naruto sent out some clones to test out the area, while he went to look around as well. Haku was trying to make ice to cool himself down, but he just kept on melting away. He had a feeling that when he get out of this place finally, his ice ability would be stronger than ever. That was if he didn't boil to death, as Fu was reading her scroll. But they have time. Yes, it's gonna take time for them to adapt to the environment. Time skip. What are you doing? I'm creating a place for us to train, said Naruto. As Teiwaya watching, the ground trembled as the earth opened up. As the trees were parted, moving to the side. The brush as well. Suddenly, spikes came out of the ground, as she had to move as one of them came right near to her feet. Are you trying to kill me? She said. No, of course not, said Naruto, as he twisted his foot. Suddenly, Teiwaya fell down because the ground slipped underneath her. Laughter could be heard. She spun her head quickly, as her hair slapped her in the face. As Haku laughed even more loudly. You find something funny, femboy, she asked. As Haku laughter died down, his face becoming neutral, as he really hated that name that she called him. From what he learned about his clan under Zabuza teaching, he found that all the men in his clan were somewhat feminine, It wasn't his fault, it was genetics. And the additional comments about his clothes didn't help at all. Kimonos were just comfortable, and that was all. But of course not, Tioe-san, said Haku, as he looked at her with a soft smile. As the both of them kept on glaring at each other though. As Naruto turned to earth once again. Now what? Said Tioe. As Naruto glanced towards the roof. Fu was up there. Recently she has become in quite distance. And he didn't know why. He would have to look into it. I'm going to attempt the exercise that the first Kage explained. As Tioe remember about that. That was rather odd for she to meet the both of them. But she knew traveling with this group, there was going to be a lot of odd things that she was going to come across. She just knew it. The balancing thing, said Tioe. As Haku laughed a bit. Got something to say? Haku-chan, said Tioe. Oh no, I was just admiring your skills and etiquette with language. I couldn't put the balancing thingy into better words myself. She flipped him off, as the both of them started to curse at one another, as Naruto simply walked up a stone slab. With the shadow clone help, he was able to place a stone right on top of it for him to sit on. As Haku and Tioe stopped fighting as Naruto sat down, he was used to meditating like this, as all of them, including Fu, started to look at him. Well, this isn't so. He had to throw his hands out to stop himself from falling, as the thing wobbled underneath him. As he released a breath and brought his arms back together, as a slab wobbled again underneath him, as he then heard scraping, as he fell. His hand caught him as Tioe burst out laughing. As Naruto looked up, how the hell was he supposed to remain still up there? I can't believe, said Tioe as she wiped her eyes away, that a monk can't even meditate properly. That's ridiculous. He was about to explain, but he stopped. It wasn't just meditating, as he picked up one stone slab and tossed to her. She caught it. Go on then, he said. She scoffed and she started looking at her. Alright, I'll show you just how easy this is. This will be a piece of cake, she said as she walked up. Time skip. Damn it, damn it, damn it! This is impossible! As her face was currently buried in a sand pillar. As Naruto had caught her, she had dropped off several times now. This is so stupid, she said. Before she looked down, she then sit down on the ground and fold her legs and close her eyes. Tioe, what are you doing? As he was a bit worried as he remembered the statue of the monk. She calmed her breath. As Naruto walked over, that's stupid. Balancing thing is worthless. I bet I can do this by myself right here. Alright, but just be careful. She snorted. Whatever you say, Mom. So what? I'm just supposed to feel nature and draw it in, or whatever bull like that. Something like that, but we don't know much herself. Tioe simply snorted as she remained still. As Naruto watched her, as Haku went back to doing what he was doing, seeing that nothing was happening. It was then that Naruto looked at her. As he saw what was happening. To a normal person, they would see nothing, but with his Rinnegan, a light green glow started to creep towards her from everywhere. It swirled around her body and surrounded her, but it did little else. As it wasn't being absorbed though, it was just on her skin. After 10 minutes and Tioe looked like she was about to pop, something finally happened. The seal on her neck that was a pale and lifeless grey started to twist and turn like it was alive. It then glowed a green color. He didn't know if it was because of his vision or not, but it started to glow and pulsate. As the green energy started to sink into her body, like it was water. Haku looked up as Tioe's skin started to change. It darkened and her hair got pink. As Naruto saw her chakra roar into life, the calm flew, becoming vicious as it was moving around quickly. Wow. Tioe opened her eyes and they had changed from her usual chocolate brown to a gold color. She took in a large breath. It was like the world just became open to her. This is incredible, she said. I told you guys this was easy. She was confused. She tried to move her arms to point at them, but it wasn't moving. She didn't notice they were looking at her strangely. She then lowered her head to see her body was turning grey, like stone, as it was becoming difficult to move her body. What's going on? What's happening to me? She said. Naruto shot forward as he placed hand on her back and started to pull at the Podin chakra. But it was not that easy. When nature chakra entered the body, it molded and it twists with spiritual and physical chakra as well, to create a perfect balance. So it was mixed within her own chakra, and he could not separate it. As he frowned and walked around, as tears started to gather at the corner of her eyes. I, I don't want to die, she said. Her voice was quiet, meek. It was nothing like how she usually sound, and it made his heart contract to hear her speak like that. You aren't going to, he says. He placed his arms on her chest, as this was the best point for him to access the points. As he started to pull, drain her body of chakra before he was sent around his coils and pushing it out as well. She watched as the spread was slowing, but it was not stopping. Move. What? She said. Move. If drawing in nature's chakra requires stillness, then movement will stop it. I am currently draining you of your chakra. Start to move, said Naruto. She moved her body left and right, up and down, anywhere that hadn't come to froze up like stone. After a full 5 minutes, it started to recede, and her skin started to turn back to normal, as Naruto was able to draw it out. As Naruto released a sigh of relief, he knew that getting it out of her system would stop it, but he never knew that it would reverse it, something he was happy for. Thanks, said Teiwaya, her voice sounding small and fragile. This is why we learned the correct way first, said Naruto, as his voice sounded tired. She nodded as she looked down to her arms and legs, as Naruto imagined almost turned to a statue, would shake someone up badly. You know, I could freeze you still if that would help, said Haku. As Naruto was about to turn to him, he was being rather insensitive, but Teiwaya beat into it. Screw off, femboy, she said. As Naruto raised the eyebrow to see Haku smirking, he did it on purpose to get her out of that, somber mood. Well, it seems like she would be okay after all. Well, next time, they will have to do it the proper way. But guys, we end this episode right here. If you want to see the next part, do like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notifications they posted. Remember, share to all of your friends in your social media platform, and stay in tune for the rest of what is coming your way. And I hope you guys enjoy each and every one of them. And yeah, guys, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.